Like every offseason, there have been some big moves. So far, we've seen players like Dak Prescott re-sign with the Cowboys, as well as Leonard Williams with the Giants. We've also seen players go to new teams like Kenny Galladay going to the Giants, and Joe Thuney to the Chiefs. There are always winners and losers every free agency, and today we're going to talk about a few winners and a few losers. There are some teams that definitely won or lost free agency that I don't talk about, but these teams really blew my mind with the moves they made, whether in a good or a bad way. But before I get into today's topic, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each is very much appreciated, help the channel out a lot. Now, let's get into the video. First winner I have is obvious, and it's the New England Patriots. Although they overpaid for some guys, they definitely got some very key additions to their team. Pat started off by re-signing Cam Newton and trading for tackle Trent Brown, who was previously on the Patriots. Brown is a key addition to the line and will start at right tackle immediately. He's very important because the team just lost Joe Thuney to the Chiefs, so bolstering the line to try to make up for that loss is a very key thing for Belichick to do. Another big thing was bringing back David Andrews, who I actually have met in person. He's a great center for the Patriots, and I was scared they'd lose him, but he signed an insane team-friendly deal for one of the better centers in the league. They then went on a weapons spending spree, signing wide receivers Nelson Agholor and Kendrick Bourne, and tight ends Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. To begin with the two wide receivers, yes, neither are wide receiver ones, and Agholor got overpaid considering players like Will Fuller and Juju Smith-Schuster's contracts. But it was the biggest position of need, and they will join a group consisting of Julian Edelman, Jacoby Myers, amongst others that aren't notable. So now New England has depth at the wideout position, with a deep threat in Agholor and a solid receiver in Kendrick Bourne, and the two tight ends are where it got scary, signing two top 10 players at their position at one time. This will bring the Pats back to the Gronk and Aaron Hernandez days, but not as deadly. See what I did there? Anyways, the tight end combo will be great for Newton, as he has always loved having a good tight end, and if his shoulder is fine and just overall doesn't throw balls into the ground, the offense will be kind of scary next year, as they also have James White coming back, along with Damian Harris and Sony Michel to run the ball. There are also some key signings on defense. To start, we have Devon Godshaw, a good nose tackle from the Dolphins for 2 years, $60 million, which is a huge addition considering the Patriots' run defense last season. They also brought back linebacker Kyle Van Noy, reuniting him with the Patriots. He's a great leader and can definitely help out in the front seven. The biggest signing, though, is Matt Judon, pass rusher from the Ravens, 4 years, $56 million, which is kind of a lot, but he'll be our top pass rusher, so I think it was necessary to pay him that much. And in Belichick's defensive scheme, I think he'll be a great player for the Patriots, might have 10 sacks and a good amount of pressures. There were some other signings, like Jalen Mills, Raekwon McMillan, Henry Anderson, who's not that bad, Montravius Adams, bringing back Deatrick Wise and Lawrence Guy, who will all be good rotational pieces for the defense. Overall, I'm giving the Patriots an A- for their free agency grade so far. Yes, they got the pieces they needed, but they overpaid for some of them in the end. These additions will bring the Patriots back to the playoffs. Definitely not Super Bowl contenders, most likely a 5 to 7 seed considering the fact that the Bills will win the AFC East. Moving on to the next winner, and I think it is very obvious, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs have officially kept all 22 starters from their Super Bowl run, something almost unheard of for a team looking to go back-to-back. It hasn't happened since 1977. They got most of their players back under market value too, like Shaquille Barrett at 4 years, $68 million, or $17 per year, or Leonard Fournette for 1 year and at most $4 million. Shaq Barrett is not significantly under market value, but I assume he would have gotten more money to go somewhere else, given the impact he had on the Buccaneer defense. They didn't really bring anyone new in, but it really doesn't matter. That defense is still scary, and that offense, even scarier. All Tampa Bay has to wait for is Antonio Brown, if he resigns or goes somewhere else like the Packers. I think he will re-sign, but we'll have to see. They're just very far on the money right now. Bucs were a top 10 defense in majority of the defensive statistical categories. That will not change next year. Having Shaq Barrett, Ndamukong Suh, Levante David, Devin White, amongst others, to hold down the fort while Tom Brady and the dual-headed backfield get to work, with also the monsters at wideout. I really think that no other team is as big of a winner as the Bucs, because it's beyond difficult to bring back every major piece of your team. If they found a way to do it, I think they should be at least a top 3 Super Bowl contender for 2021, barring injuries of course, are definitely the top team in the NFC. The fact that Brady has a chance to win an 8th Super Bowl is just crazy. We can only expect them to make a far run in the playoffs and help Brady bring another Lombardi back to Tampa Bay. A+ for the Buccaneers. The last major winner I have, Washington football team. He began their spree with Taylor Heineke a while back in February, a small investment that is a low-risk, high-reward contract. 2 years, $8.75 million for someone who might be able to be a starter? I mean, maybe. He had one good game against Tampa Bay in the wild card, but besides that, showed no promise of being anything in the NFL. But Ron Rivera is a good coach. Ryan Fitzpatrick's a great leader and mentor for other quarterbacks. Speaking of Fitzmagic, he signed to the Washington football team for 1 year, $10 million. The perfect bridge quarterback for any team, regardless of how old he is. Fitzpatrick is obviously better than any quarterback on the football team last season, so that helps their chances in the NFC a lot, which I think they will win, or at least make the playoffs. They also brought back first-team All-Pro guard Brendan Scherf on the franchise tag. Huge player to bring back. They also added a huge piece to their offense, as well as one piece to their defense, wide receiver Curtis Samuel and cornerback William Jackson. Samuel's with Ron Rivera for most of his career, so he and the NFL community know that he'll be a great wide receiver next to Terry McLaurin, and the two have a lot of chemistry, since they were good friends at Ohio State. Samuel brings a lot of things Washington needs to the offense, since outside of Terry, they really did not have much at the wide receiver position. He's a versatile wide receiver too, who can run the ball in sweeps, even out of the backfield, can do a lot in the pass game as well, obviously. I think he'll have a career year with Washington and will be 100% worth the $34.5 million deal he signed this offseason. Next, we have cornerback William Jackson. Joining a strong secondary on a 3-year, $40.5 million deal, he adds to an already stacked defense, top 3 to be exact, and will fit right into this team. Being the presumed cornerback 1, he'll have to carry the load next to Kendall Fuller. I think those two, along with Landon Collins and young upcoming stud Cameron Curl at the safety positions, will be a scary secondary to throw against, especially since offenses won't have much time to throw, with Chase Young and Montez Sweat rushing them off the edges, with Jonathan Allen and De'Aaron Payne on the inside. If they don't win the NFC East, I'll be shocked, unless the Cowboys' defense somehow becomes good. Expect them to go over 500, make the playoffs, and possibly make it to the divisional round next season. A- for the football team. Now, we move on to the biggest losers. To begin, the Chicago Bears. I'm going to keep my talk about the Bears short, but so far their only good signing was Desmond Trufant to a 1-year deal. A not bad corner, good addition. Obviously, there's Allen Robinson, but he was franchise tag, so he basically had to come back. So I mean, that's another good move, but yeah. Their offseason is bad because of one move, and one move only. Andy Dalton is now the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Ryan Pace, Bears GM, is quoted saying Andy Dalton is a complete quarterback. Yeah, Pace. Sure he is. Let's ask the Cowboys about that 4-5 record and its 9 turnovers about that. Dalton also ranks 33rd in air yards per attempt, which is not great by any means. The fact the Bears have already committed to them as their starter, 8-9 at best. Just such a bad move by them. At least draft somebody to compete with him. Please. Just anybody. Like any quarterback. Sorry about the depressing part of that. Outside of these 3 players, there really are not a lot of notable names, except for their now backup running back Damien Williams, who played great in that Super Bowl. Just a really bad offseason for the Bears. Let's hope they can fix it in the draft. I'm gonna have to give them a D-, not an F, just because they kept Allen Robinson and brought in Desmond Trufant. The Las Vegas Raiders may or may not be the stupidest team in the NFL a couple weeks into free agency. They brought in Kenyon Drake, a starting caliber running back, on a 2-year, $11 million deal. Why? You have Josh Jacobs, while potentially overrated, he's still a good running back for your future. Why would you bring in another young, good running back for $5.5 million, maybe $7.25 million a year? It just makes no sense to me. Don't even get me started with their offensive line. They trade Trent Brown to the Patriots for a 5th-round pick. That's one starting lineman gone. Then they traded one of the better centers in the league, Rodney Hudson, for a 3rd-round pick. And oh yeah, Gabe Jackson's gone too for a 5th. Let's just make Derek Carr's situation worse, right? That's what you want to do, Gruden? Their offensive line was not bad last year, and now it just is terrible. They also weirdly released then re-signed Richie Incognito. Definitely a cat move, but just a weird sequence of events I haven't really seen before. They also let their number 1 receiver walk, but I will give them credit. They brought in a good, cheap replacement for Aguilar and John Brown, as well as Willie Snead, who can make plays sometimes. So I'll not discredit them for that, especially given the money Aguilar got in free agency. Another good move by the Raiders was Yannick Ngakoue, but I don't think he's worth the $13 million a year. He's a good pass rusher, but that's it. He sucks against the run, and and his sometimes inconsistent pass rushing. Still good, but I don't know how I feel about the move. Not really a Raiders fan, so it doesn't impact me that much. Lastly, they released defensive back LaMarcus Joyner. Another cat move, but he's one of the leaders on this defense, so it sucks to see him go. There really was not much they could have done given the cap situation this offseason. Overall, giving the Raiders a D+ or C-. Lots of stupid moves. And the final big loser I have this offseason is the one and only Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers lost two of their big pieces in the secondary, Mike Hilton to the Bengals, and Steven Nelson, who they recently released, who did not even give the chance at a pay cut, Steven Nelson reported. Hilton is a great signing for the Bengals, as he is very underrated core in the league, but an even bigger loss for the Steelers, who've only seemed to get worse this offseason, especially in the secondary. They also lost Bud Dupree to the Titans, but in reality, it may not have been a huge loss. Dupree was great alongside TJ Watt, but he tore his ACL and signed a 5-year contract worth up to $85 million, $35 guaranteed. He is clearly not worth the money, and I think everyone can agree on that. He is not the player the Titans paid him to be, as we never really have seen him succeed on his own, but maybe he can. Personally, I don't think so, but there's a chance he could be a great pass rusher for Tennessee. I'll give Pittsburgh props for not paying him the money he got, especially after the injury and the cap situation this season, but it's still another defensive piece they lost. The team only made one real signing this free agency, bringing back Juju on a very cheap deal for a slot wide receiver for his caliber, and only 1 year for $8 million. Great deal for them, but again, that's really the only deal the Steelers made. They also brought back Tyson Alualu, who's a good rotational piece on the defensive line. But they almost lost him to Jacksonville, and it's also nothing too special. They also cut Vince Williams, the starting linebacker for them, which leaves a hole outside of Dem Bush at the interior linebacker position. Bush also tore his ACL, so who knows how he will be next year. Again, another potential hole on defense, even though he's still in the team. Overall, there were way too many losses for the Steelers, and I really cannot let it slide. Gonna give the Steelers a D+. The plus only because they brought back Juju on a very cheap deal, even though it's only for 1 year. This offseason, there were other winners, like the Denver Broncos, and some other losers, like the Titans, who are because of the Dupree contract. But these 6 were the biggest winners or losers in my eyes. Maybe the moves these teams made will either not work, or will work out depending on whether I deem them a winner or loser. Overall, this free agency has been great so far, as we have seen big names move from their current teams or re-sign with them. We've seen the classic overpay for someone just because you want to, like Shaquille Griffin, cutting people because of the cap situation this year, and some retirings like Drew Brees. I cannot wait for what the draft holds, after the first 3 picks of course, because those are all going to be quarterbacks. I want to see who each team believes can be a part of their future. With all that being said, that is it for me guys. Thank you for tuning in to Fanatic Sports. Hope you all liked the video, and if you did, please subscribe and hit the like button. It only takes like 2 seconds. Also, follow me on Instagram at FanaticSports25 and on Twitter at FanaticSports. But before I go, who do you think was the biggest winner and loser this free agency? Comment your thoughts down below and why they are the biggest winner or loser in your eyes.